everybody. I'm Rebecca from Thieving at Her Farm,
And I'm Leo with Southern Biophiliac Urban Farm.
and we are two chicks Coturnix bringing you the scoop
Not the poop.
on Coturnix quail. Today, we're going to do another two chicks, 2 cents. We're going to give you 2 cents on a topic, just a little bit of our thoughts on, maybe a question that comes up quite a bit. That we might be able to help out with. So today we wanted to talk about assisting during the hatch. But first, before we get into assisting and why you may or may not want to do that, Leah, why don't you tell us about like the whole hatching process? Like, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so the hatching process can actually take a long time. So what happens during that process is first the chick is going to internally pip through the membrane inside of the shell. And there's a little air sac in there, and they breathe that air. And once that air starts to go away, that kind of signals them to break through and pip out the external shell. And then what they're going to do, they're going to make that hole so they can breathe the fresh air, and they're going to kind of hang out for a while. And they can hang out in that position for up to 24 hours before they start zipping. And
Yeah.
zipping is where, they'll start taking their little beak around the shell and getting ready to come out.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you mentioned like the length of time that happens, because so many people will see a pip in the shell and they're so excited and they're
Right?
just sitting there watching and waiting,
Where's my
and
Chix?
yes, waiting and waiting, and everybody's wondering like, okay, should I help? And it's a lot of waiting. It hatching is a tiresome process. There's a
Right?
lot to it.
Yeah, they're really going through a lot through that whole thing. They're strengthening their body. They're absorbing their egg yolk, absorbing blood through that's still in the membrane. So they need that time to get ready to actually be in the external world.
Yeah. And so I guess we need to talk about like, why would you not want to assist? Like, what could happen if you assisted?
There's actually a lot of things that can happen. One of them being is you could injure the chick trying to chip away the shell or pull the shell away. If you squeeze too hard, you could hurt them. The other thing is too that internal membrane has to take time to dry up and the chick to absorb the blood that's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tear through that membrane, you can actually cause them to bleed to death.
Yep. Yeah. And I've seen too, chicks that, like you mentioned before, haven't yet absorbed that yolk sac. And so, they're just not ready to come out of the egg yet. Um, And you kind of mentioned like moving around and strengthening themselves. I think this is one of the big reasons why chicks, when people assist, have curled toes a lot of times, because they haven't had that opportunity to like push against the shell and strengthen their body on the way out.
Right, get those little muscles all ready to be on the outside.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what are some reasons that a chick might struggle to hatch? So let's say things aren't going right. Like the other chicks have hatched and now like you have these last ones that you're just like, dude, I've been waiting so long. Like at what point do we start getting worried?
So everyone's going to look at this differently, but I've always felt that if the chick can't exit the egg, it is weak for some reason, and maybe it's not supposed to hatch.
Yep. And that's something, not every chick is meant to hatch. And we would love for every egg to hatch, every egg to be fertilized, and every egg to hatch, and every chick to be big and strong and healthy. But the reality is that sometimes things don't work right. Maybe it's an external issue. Maybe the temperature wasn't right, or the humidity wasn't right, or, you know, something like that. Or it could be an internal issue. Maybe the nutrition wasn't good for the parent birds, and so it created a weaker chick. Maybe it's a line that, is weaker. Um, Maybe the cells just didn't divide correctly. So sometimes they're just not meant to be.
Right.
So, uh, I guess another thing that we may have missed is, like, if let's say I'm super excited. It's my first hatch.
Yes.
We're sitting there, we're watching, and we're like, "Oh my goodness, it's been too long. I want to help that chick." If I open that incubator and help that chick, what could happen?
So when you open the incubator at lockdown, you know, we built up humidity. Eggs are hatching, humidity's built up. When you open that incubator up, you release that humidity into the outside air.
Mhm.
So that safe internal space of the incubator has now dropped in humidity, which can be drastic for those hatching eggs. That membrane, that internal membrane that they're working on absorbing and getting out of, can actually dry too fast and actually get them stuck in their shell.
Mhm. I've seen that time and time again. It's sad when you see a chick that would have hatched if they'd been given a little bit more time. And this is one of the reasons why we also say, when you have chicks hatching, leave them in the incubator.
That's
You
why it's
know,
called lockdown. We are
yep.
locking down. We are not going in. We are staying
It's
on the outside.
Yep, it's hard. You see them and they're so cute and so fluffy, and you just want to get them out and you want to hold them and you see what they look like and everything. But taking that one chick out or a handful of chicks out could potentially be the death of the ones that are still waiting to hatch. And nobody wants to do that. So, okay. Are there any times when you want to assist?
Um, for me, there's not too many. I did have my Kool-Aid chick, which
Okay. You'll have to
he
explain the Kool-Aid chick.
he actually hatched on the wrong end of the egg, but he had gotten himself pretty much all the way out, but because it was the wrong end of the egg, he couldn't get the rest of his body out because the body's bigger. And technically he was pretty much out of the egg. His whole little head was fluffy. He looked like he, had rammed through a brick wall. And I was like, okay, I think you need a little bit of help.
All I
But
can picture is the chick in the cartoons that has, like, the feet out the bottom and then the shell and then the head walking
yeah,
around.
he pretty much almost looked like that. I'll have to share the photo to the Facebook page.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to see that. Okay, so I'll admit it. There have been a couple of times when I have assisted. Not so much with quail, but I have occasionally assisted with chicken chicks. I'll admit it. I'm always do as I say, not as I do. But there have been a couple of times when I have accidentally not locked down on time, or like something has happened where I moved chicks at the wrong time and they got shrink wrapped. And I'm like, okay, had I not made a mistake, you guys would have hatched.
Right.
And so in those instances, I have helped a little bit, but honestly, just as we talked about before, if they don't go through the process of hatching on their own and pushing and shoving and, all of the things, they generally don't do so well. And so I kind of I've stopped doing that, and just tried other things like increasing my humidity, or, in cases where I've accidentally shrink wrapped them, um, something where I'm not assisting because they really do need that process to go through. Can you think of any
Definitely.
other times?
Not
Yeah,
really.
not
No.
really.
I mean, I when I was, brand new to it and doing it, I did it a few times, but I almost always lost those chicks, or that
Yep.
they just were failure to thrive and didn't do very well.
Yeah, you find that, once you get them out, you realize that they were some of those chicks that just weren't meant to be. And then it's a heartbreak. It really
Yes.
is. It's such a heartbreak. Because then then you're like, oh, I've got to try. It's hard to see something struggle.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Well, do you have any other wise words about chick hatching?
When they're on lockdown, keep them on lockdown.
Keep them on lockdown. And okay, so I guess we should probably say, if we're going to tell people not to get their chicks out, how long should they leave the chicks in the incubator before they start getting them out?
It can be up to 48 hours.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it can be up to 48 hours. They still have enough yolk and energy in that to, not become dehydrated or starved or any of those things. Um, and it's really, you kind of want to, if you can see the other eggs, you kind of want to keep an eye on, what's going on with the other eggs.
Mhm.
Are they pipped? Are they zipped? What process are they in?
Yeah. And that is really important for people to know is that okay, so in the wild, all the chicks don't necessarily hatch at the exact same time. And so the hen is going to stay on those eggs until she's pretty sure that they're done hatching. So chicks are made with that, they absorb the yolk and they're made to be able to last for a little bit while they wait for their siblings to hatch. So it's perfectly okay. You're not being a big meanie by leaving those chicks in the incubator. It'll be more of a big meanie if you accidentally shrink wrap the other babies.
Yeah, they're warm and safe in there. So
Yep. They're
leave
perfectly
them be.
fine. Yep. So I think those are great words of wisdom. And it's been fun giving our 2 cents on this topic.
Yes.
Everybody, thank you for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe
Take
and have
care.
a great night.